So in this video, we're going to be talking about the ATF's new rule on frames and receivers and how it's going to impact suppressors. So let's talk about this. But real quick before we jump into this video, if you think the ATF needs to be abolished, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. Also, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Sonoran Desert Institute. SDI is an accredited online college that helps students learn the skills and techniques they'll need to be successful in the firearms industry. So if you enjoy gun repair, ballistics, and learning about firearms, SDI might be a good option for you. To find out more, you can visit the link down in the details section, and thank you again SDI for sponsoring this video. Also, I want to thank another major supporter of this channel, which is USCCA. Through your membership, you get training, education, and self-defense liability protection. So if you carry a firearm, I highly recommend you take a look into USCCA, and I'll put a link to them down in the details section. So I guess in the intro, the ATF recently released their final rule on frames and receivers. Now, I gave a brief breakdown of some of the main points you should take away from this new rule on frames and receivers in a prior video. So if you want to know about how the rule specifically is going to impact 80%ers, 3D printing, things like that, you can watch that video. I will attach that video at the end of this video on one of the end cards so you can actually get that information if you need the 80%er information. However, in this video, I want to talk about how the new rule is actually going to impact suppressors as well and how it's going to do that. Now, one side note real quick is that this ATF rule is about 364 pages. I've gone through it twice now. It's really complicated. A lot of the definitions are like multi-leveled, referring to one thing that refers to another. So a lot of this is pretty complicated even for me to try to understand sometimes. I could get some of this stuff wrong. Even if I get some of this stuff wrong, I will always make sure I update you guys. But as I'm going through this, this is how I see that this new rule is actually going to target suppressors in a very specific way. So let's talk about how it does this. Under the ATF's new rule, suppressors will now have a defined frame where the devices actually need to be marked. The rule states that the frame cannot be the end cap, but instead must be the outer tube of the suppressor. The ATF claims that this will help to standardize the marking of all of these items. The new rule states on page 328, if you're looking at the PDF form, in the definition section that the terms frame and receiver shall mean in the case of a firearm muffler or firearm silencer, the part of the firearm, such as an outer tube or modular piece, that provides housing or a structure for the primary internal component designed to reduce the sound of a projectile, i.e. baffles, baffling material, expansion chamber, or equivalent. In the case of a modular firearm muffler or firearm silencer device with more than one such part, the term shall mean the principal housing attached to the end that expels a projectile, even if the adapter or other attachments are required to connect the part to the weapon. The term shall not include a removable end cap of an outer tube or modular piece. So under the new rule, a suppressor now has a frame or receiver, which they consider to be the outer tube or housing of the suppressor. And that is the part that needs to be marked. Now you may be asking, what does the outer tube mean or qualify as? Well, the rule goes on to state, ATF considers the term outer tube to mean the largest external part of a silencer and is the portion of a silencer that encapsulates all components of the silencing unit and which contains and controls the expansion of the escaping gases. ATF explained that placing all required markings on the outer tube of a completed firearm silencer or firearm muffler is the accepted industry standard. In addition, ATF discussed that requiring identification markings to be placed on a single part provides consistency of markings throughout the industry and eliminates the need to remark a device in the event an end cap bearing the marks is damaged and requires replacement. ATF believed that a more specific marking requirement for firearm silencers, such as the outer tube, would lead to the greater uniformity, improve public safety, and decrease firearms crimes, including firearms trafficking. So that is kind of the main statement that they're making of why they're actually doing this. The ATF says that a suppressor will be marked only one time on the frame or receiver of the suppressor, and that is going to actually be the outer tube portion of the suppressor that contains all of the components. Now, there is one caveat to all of this, which may cause a lot of issues down the road, and it specifically will cause issues maybe for Form 1 suppressors. The new rule states that the individual muffler or silencer parts were proposed to be marked if they are disposed of separately from a complete device unless transferred by manufacturers qualified under the NFA to other qualified licensees for the manufacture or repair of complete devices. So there appears to be this distinction in the new rule between completed firearms mufflers and completed firearms silencers, and these other silencer parts, maybe kits, but the ATF is still saying that they are considered these parts or these combination of parts to still be silencer suppressors, and that they will need to still be marked, and they won't have to be marked one time. They're likely going to have multiple marks or serializations or identification. Now let's take a look at the definition of complete muffler or silencer that is included in this rule. The ATF defines complete muffler or silencer as a firearm muffler or firearm silencer that contains all component parts necessary to function, whether or not assembled or operable. Here the definition change makes things that contain all parts to build a suppressor, whether they are assembled or actually even operational, it makes them an actual firearm/suppressor subject to NFA restrictions and markings. So think about the ATF's recent actions on going after solvent traps as actual firearms and suppressors as they currently exist without being actually built out. This language in the rule essentially reaffirms the ATF's position that even incomplete devices and combination of parts can still be suppressors and therefore will be treated as such and will need to be marked and will be subject to NFA restrictions. This brings major concerns in my mind if you can actually still Form 1 a lot of devices going forward. Now, essentially, since the ATF and this rule are saying that a combination of parts is already considered to be a suppressor, and they would already be subject to marking and restrictions before they are even built out or could ever be Form 1. It also raises concerns that the ATF could argue many people are illegally in possession of suppressors right now because they have these kits or combination of parts, and these combination of parts they are saying are already actually completed firearms or suppressors, silencers, and that they should have already been subject to this marking. And again, raises big concerns about maybe someone already being in illegal possession of one of these items. We've already seen this play out practically with the ATF sending letters to companies and customers of companies of diversified machine. There, the ATF claimed that those individuals illegally are in possession of suppressors when they simply purchase solvent traps and these various combination of parts. Also, the recent denial of many Form 1s showed that the ATF was taking a position change that these parts and combination of parts were already suppressors that could not be Formed 1 because as they existed as just parts and inoperable, they were already considered to be suppressors, silencers/firearms that needed to be marked and registered. So the ATF's new rule on frames and receivers did not just impact frames and receivers. It also made some changes to where suppressors need to be marked from now on, specifically identifying that the outer tube will now need to be marked, but it also reaffirmed the ATF's position that these combination of parts as they are sold are already suppressors and that they need to be marked as such. This new ATF rule is a really nasty one on multiple levels, and I really implore everybody watching this to reach out to your representatives and let them know that they need to actually oppose this. They need to get together in Congress and actually put a stop to this ATF overreach. Also, another thing you can do if you're watching this and you want to actually join the fight is to keep an eye out for organizations like FPC and GOA who are likely going to be looking for plaintiffs really soon so they can actually sue the ATF and try to get rid of this new rule. So that's just a quick rundown of how this new rule on frames and receivers will impact suppressors. And if you guys have any questions, go ahead and comment down below and I'll try to answer the best of my ability. Also, if you like the video and like support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. All those things help to fuel the algorithm or fuel Algor's rhythm. It adds fuel to his jet, and it signals to YouTube that you guys see value in these videos and in this type of 2A news. Again, I want to thank everybody who likes, comments, subscribes, who hits the notification bell, who shares these videos. You guys are directly impacting these videos, impacting this channel, and helping me to reach and educate more people than I could have ever thought. So thank you so much for all of your support. And as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And never forget, this station was built by Arm Scholars and station will be maintained by Arm Scholars.